You're listening to The Other Side of Weight Loss. I'm your host, Karen Martell, transformational nutrition coach and expert in women's weight loss and hormone health. If you are ready to go beyond diet and exercise, then tune in each week to hear from leading experts in psychology, nutrition, and spirituality as we explore the many avenues of what it really takes to lose weight and feel your best. Hey everyone, thanks for tuning into today's show. We've got another great Q&A podcast for you with some great questions from our listeners. Before we get started, if you haven't already, go take my very comprehensive hormone quiz on my website. It is amazing. You get a lot when you take this quiz. It takes a little time because I was trying to be, as exact as possible as far as what could be your number one hormonal imbalance. So I asked you a lot of questions to try to narrow that down to one of the top hormone imbalances that I see in women. And then you will get all of my little ebooks on each of the hormone imbalances, so you can check them all out because it usually tends to be more than one thing that's out of balance. So you can look into each of them. And then it also comes with a 2-week hormone and metabolic reboot meal plan. So this is a way of eating that I've come up with after working with thousands of women that I see works best for the majority of hormonal women. Don't worry, I'm one of those hormonal women too. So you can go do that at KarenMartell.com. And if you are interested in taking it farther and really getting to know what hormones are out of balance, not just one of them from a quiz, you can take my at-home hormone test kit. We've got a couple different options. We've got a straight up adrenal kit that just tests cortisol and DHEA. If that's all you're interested in checking out, that can be good for women that are in menopause that know already that, hey, obviously you don't have much estrogen or progesterone going on, and you just want to see the state of your adrenals. We also have one that includes your estradiol, progesterone, testosterone, DHEA, and 4-point cortisol test, which is my favorite one and best seller because that just gives us an all-around look at all of the most important hormones. I also have one that includes a thyroid panel, so you can also get that done as well. So you can check those out at KarenMartell.com/shop, and each of these kits comes with a 20-minute interpretation session. All right. And also a 30-day hormone detox meal plan. So there. All right. Now let's get into the Q&A. Okay. So first, just a very simple question from one of our listeners, which is one of my Canadian listeners, which is, what is a good source of progesterone and estriol to buy in Canada? I always say estriol, but I've heard it pronounced estriol. Anyways, I'll say estriol. They kind of all sounded the same, but I was trying to make a distinction between those. So in Canada, for those of you that don't know, it isn't sold over the counter here in Canada. It used to be, but it isn't anymore, thanks to our freaking medical system took it off the shelves, which they shouldn't have. In the United States, you can buy it over the counter. You can buy it online, no problem. Same with DHEA. Both in Canada and the United States, you cannot buy estradiol or testosterone, but you can buy pregnenolone, progesterone, estriol, and DHEA. So from here in Canada, I do have a few places in which will still ship to Canada. One of them is good old Amazon. If you go into Amazon.ca or .com, actually, there are a few. I noticed that Amazon.ca has progesterone and estriol, but they don't have DHEA, if I remember correctly. But if you go into Amazon.com, you can get DHEA cream or oral, as well as estriol cream. I even saw one that did say they had estradiol in it, and it had a ton of reviews, but I wonder if it really does have estradiol in it or if it's just estriol. I always look for ones that have a ton of reviews and a ton of 4 to 5 star reviews on them. Because if you find one that's got like one review, you really don't know the quality that you're going to be getting. And that tends to be kind of like the warning against buying them over the counter, is you really don't know what you're getting as far as amounts in those creams or pills. So I think when you see that, okay, you know what, 3,000 women just gave this a 4-star review, I think that's probably going to mean that it's going to work. And you can read the reviews and they say like, oh yeah, my hot flashes are gone. I've lost weight. I feel better. Thank goodness, this saved my life. You'll get the bad ones too, but as long as majority are in the positive, then I feel like that those are the good ones to be buying off of Amazon. So the two that have the highest amount of reviews, I personally have not tried them. I have had clients that have and had a good results with them, are Smoky Mountain and Emerita. And those two particular ones for progesterone and estriol have a ton of reviews. They look like they're great. I remember seeing this one girl's lab results, and she had really high amounts of progesterone. And she said, oh, I've been using the Emerita progesterone cream off of Amazon. So I was like, hey, great, it works. Shows up in test results. The other place is plattwellness.com. PLATT wellness.com. If you listen to an episode called Adrenaline Dominance and Your Hormones with Dr. Michael Platt, he created or made his own progesterone cream and estriol cream. The progesterone cream is great because it's a higher dose. It's a 5%. It's usually 2% when you normally buy it, and he went up to 5%, and it actually is 50 milligrams per pump. Usually it's 25, so twice the dose, which is great. I think that 50 is a good amount for most women to start with. If you're in menopause, you could go higher than that, maybe do 2 pumps a day, or if you have any sort of insulin resistance, you can go even higher. Or if you think you have adrenaline dominance, you can go listen to that episode. It's amazing. He's a huge advocate for progesterone cream, but it's such a great episode. It's one of everybody's favorites. So you could go listen to that. But anyways, he said that he will send it to Canada, which he does. I buy my estriol from him, which I use all the time. I use it on my face because it's great for collagen. It's great for your vagina health. So you can actually put it inside your vagina, and it's just great for lubrication. And then it's also very breast protective estriol. So it actually helps with prevention of breast cancer. So it's a good one. So estriol and his progesterone are both great. I've also ordered DHEA from him as well. So great and good prices, even though they're in the US. I think it cost about maybe $20 to ship, something like that, all said and done. Because yes, you are going to pay some shipping costs with no matter where you're buying it from, because I don't even think you can get Amazon Prime with the other ones. So you are going to pay a little bit for it. But I found that even with the shipping charges, it ended up being cheaper than what I was getting from my compounding pharmacy here in Canada. Now that is also your other option, is to get a prescription, which is, I think it is preferred, because then you do know what you're getting and you're guaranteed to get it, like all of those things. It's just a safer route. You should always work with your doctor anyways when it comes to your hormones. Find a doctor that will work with you, that can help you monitor, and figure out what dose is going to be right for you. So always, always, always go the doctor route first. Try to get the prescription for it. If you can't, or maybe you can't afford to see a naturopath, and that might be your only option to get properly cared for when it comes to your hormones, then you can go ahead and order online. But just be cautious, use them, go low first, see how it feels, and, adjust your doses. If you're taking any sort of not estriol, but estradiol. It's always, and this is why you can only get it from your doctor, which I think is good, is you want to monitor your uterus if you're on estrogen, because you don't want to build up too much of a lining in your uterus. So always go medical route first if you can. All right. Second question. I just heard a keto educator say that women with thyroid issues should not eat too many cruciferous vegetables. I haven't heard this before. What do you think about this? So for those of you that don't know what cruciferous vegetables are, because my neighbor just told me she didn't know what it is, and I thought everybody knew what a cruciferous vegetable was. It's cauliflower, cabbage, kale, uh, garden cress, bok choy, broccoli, Brussels sprouts, and a bunch of other things, but those are the main ones that are mostly that people eat anyways. So those are all cruciferous vegetables. Now, cruciferous vegetables are amazing, and every woman should have a shit ton of them in their diet. Excuse my language, but they really should, because cruciferous vegetables have so many health benefits. Okay, they contain cancer-fighting compounds in them. They'll help you reduce inflammation. They help to regulate blood sugar. They promote weight loss, enhance heart health, and promote estrogen balance. So I think for that reason alone, that's why I eat so many of them, because I do have a hard time breaking down estrogen. So eating cruciferous vegetables is really important because it will help with that. Now, there is some concern about the relationship between the cruciferous vegetables and thyroid problems. And you'll go out there on the internet and you'll see, and for years, I told women with thyroid problems, don't eat the cruciferous vegetables because it's going to cause your thyroid to malfunction farther. This is with women with hypothyroidism. And then I started digging into the research more and realized that a lot of this is not true. Now, when you eat cruciferous vegetables raw, your intestines will release something called goitrogens. Now, goitrogens are said to increase the need for iodine and cause damage to the thyroid gland. However, research shows that it would take a large amount of cruciferous vegetables to cause thyroid damage. And it's likely only to be an issue if someone has an iodine deficiency, which is common in people with hypothyroidism. But in one study involving University of California, researchers concluded that though collard greens and Brussels sprouts and some Russian kale, which I didn't even know there was such a thing as Russian kale, contain enough goitrogenic compounds to potentially decrease iodine uptake. That's not true for all the cruciferous vegetables, though. The researchers found that turnip tops, broccoli, and other kale species contain a very small amount of goitrogenic chemicals per serving, which concludes that those foods can be considered minimal risk. In another small study, participants were given 150 grams of Brussels sprouts daily for 4 weeks, even though these sprouts contained a super high 220 milligrams per 100 grams of sulfurous chemicals called glucosinolates. They did not affect thyroid function. Measurement of all the thyroid hormones in that study showed they were unchanged. The researchers believe that this was because the Brussels sprouts were cooked and produced an enzyme that helps to deactivate that glucosinolate levels. Okay, so bottom line, there is no evidence that cruciferous vegetables slow down or kill the thyroid. And unfortunately, there are many health bloggers who don't fact check, like I didn't back in the day, and have cut and repasted incorrect statements claiming that all leafy greens and all the broccoli and cauliflower are bad for your thyroid, which is just not the case. In fact, cruciferous vegetables are super nutritionally dense foods. So they are good for women with thyroid issues who are often depleted in micronutrients. So if you do have a thyroid issue and you do know that you have iodine deficiency, you can be on the safe side and eat cruciferous vegetables that have been cooked and limit your intake to about 1 or 2 servings per day. Now, how many of you are actually, who have hypothyroidism, are you eating more than 1 or 2 servings of these cruciferous vegetables a day? My guess is that you're not. So I really would not worry about it. And you can err on the side of caution because there is that little bit of chance when you overconsume certain ones that it can impair your iodine levels. And in which case, cook them. Don't go over 1 or 2 servings a day, and you'll be just fine. And you're going to benefit from all of those other amazing things that cruciferous vegetables do for women. Okay. All right. I listened to your interview with Kate Deering, who talked with you about eating more carbs. I've been on a very low carb diet. That talk made me think I should be adding more carbs even as a diabetic. Now, they do tend to make me gain weight, but maybe I should get my body more used to them. What do you think? Well, I'll tell you what, I really rocked the boat with my interview with Kate Deering, which I knew it was going to, and I was really excited to actually post this interview. I've had it in my files for months. I think we talked back in January, Kate and I. And I was excited about it because it's just this whole other take on carbohydrates. And in the last couple of years, myself included, have been immersed in the low carb world and everything keto and everything fasting. And Kate, also Jeannie and Josh, if you guys listen to that one, Jeannie and Josh Rubin that I interviewed back in January, they also talk about very similar things. This whole idea that carbs are not the devil that we've made them out to be. Now, Kate was definitely her background. She comes from the fitness world. Like she said, she used to work out, 7 days a week, 14 hours a week, like was a fanatic gym rat. She was chronically calorie restricting, eating extremely low fat foods, and for years, and destroyed her metabolism. And that is really a lot of what her information is geared towards. Not to say that it isn't for other people, because I certainly, if you've been listening to me for a while, you know that I myself have really shifted gears on the whole ketogenic stance. And it isn't the end all be all. I think it's should be used as a therapeutic tool to reverse things like diabetes, to help you to lose weight, to help you become metabolically flexible. But I have seen it cause a lot of issues long term. And as you dig into the science, you're going to start to see why that is. And I'll explain a little bit of that too. But basically, I wanted Kate to come on the show because I really try to get across to everybody that it is so important not to jump on the bandwagon. And I have to give myself the same advice. I'm terrible for hopping on the next best thing. We all are. We want to believe that the newest whatever, whether that be vegan or Atkins or the Zone or whatever it is going to be the magic weight loss cure. But the point is, it is so critical that we start to change that within ourselves, that we start to really believe, we have to believe that there is no one perfect diet, because there isn't. I just spent the weekend with my girlfriends, and two of them started to tell me that, oh, you know what, Karen, vegan's the best diet. And I'm thinking to myself, number one, who do you think you're talking to? And two, I said, you know what, we're all going to back up and find information that backs up our own belief system. That's just what we do, myself included. But there is stuff that there's information, there's research, there's studies, there's cultures out there that prove every single way of eating, as long as you're eating real food, can be good for you. So there is a ton of stuff that will back up veganism. There is a ton of stuff that can back up eating nothing but fat. People out in, where was it? The Inuits eat like seal fat and seal meat for months on end and live off of it just fine. There's cultures, tribes, hunter-gatherer tribes out there in the world that eat nothing but corn and have no health issues, or very little health issues, have no obesity rates, and they eat corn. So each one of you, depending on your hormonal profile, depending on your gut, depending on your stress levels, depending on your inflammation levels, we're all going to need something different. And Kate's way is one, could be something that's going to work for you. So back to the original question, which is, I have diabetes. Should I be eating more carbs, even though they make me gain weight? So if you've been low carb for a very long time, or for, let's say, a year plus, and you've stopped losing weight, that is a sign that it could be time to start becoming more carb tolerant, because you could be at that point right now where your body has now become very carb intolerant, which is what Kate's talking about, which is what I've talked about numerous times. So you want your body to be able to eat sugar and process it properly. So you want to train the system to do that. So without ever eating any carbs ever again, you're never giving your body that chance. So I would test it out. Biohack yourself. Start putting in once a week. You're always going to, just so you guys know, you will always gain some weight when you start to put carbs back in after a low carb diet, because carbs in and of themselves will make you retain water. So when you see a fluctuation in your weight of 2 to 5 pounds, when you start to put back in those carbs, that's water weight. So don't panic, let it ride out. I just had one woman say to me in my group, she came from a very low carb keto diet and wasn't doing well on it. And she said, I just had to trust in your process, Karen, because I did gain weight in the beginning. And she said, but now, she's a month or two in, and she's like, the weight's now coming off. And it had stopped coming off on the keto diet. So you may, and Kate talks about this too, you may gain weight when you start adding them back in, but monitor your blood sugar. If you've got diabetes, you should have a blood sugar monitor. So test it out. Do carb tolerance testing. It's a great tool. Eat 200 grams of one type of carbs. Let's say you just have 200 grams of a sweet potato in the morning. Test your fasting blood glucose, eat the sweet potato. 2 hours later, test it again. If it's super high, then it's not good for you. You can get Rob Wolf's book, Wired to Eat, which is fantastic. He explains all the carb tolerance testing. That's where I got it from. And then he'll tell you, in detail how to do it. You can also join my On Track program, which also has all of that information on how to do it as well. But you can test it out. And so you test out different carbs and see which ones agree with your body. Now, this person, she's diabetic. So she might find that the only thing that she can eat might be fruit. and not anything else. And so that's what you would start with. So maybe start with testing a few of these carbs out. And when I say carbs, I'm not talking like cake. I'm talking, sweet potato. Some people do really well on the white potato, myself included. You can do the fruit. Start with low glycemic fruits, have a bowl full of berries and raspberries. See how the body reacts. You might find that there's no weight gain. You feel great. And in which case, then you can start putting that into your diet. Even if if you're still type 2 diabetic, you could just put it in a couple times a week and move up from there and just keep eye on your sugars, your blood sugar. Continually test, continually monitor, and see what it's doing, because you're not going to know unless you're doing that. We don't know, okay, is this person's type 2 diabetic? You might be still so diabetic and have really bad blood sugar that anything you eat is still creating issues with your blood sugar. And in which case you may need to stay in that low carb zone for longer. Or consider doing that. If you've been low carb keto for a long time, over a year, and you're still type 2 diabetic, then time to do something more about that, whether that's going on some metformin or a natural route, doing some berberine. High amounts of berberine can really help. Figuring out if you've got mercury toxicity. All of these things can influence someone's blood sugar. And as well, going low carb keto for a long time, you guys, can induce what is called physiological insulin resistance. Most people on low carb diets don't know this. So, physiological insulin resistance is an adaptation. Your body is adapting to the lack of glucose after a certain amount of time, which will look different for each person. It does this because your brain has to have glucose, you guys, has to. Now, your brain can run on ketones really well, and it will start to use ketones quite effectively when you're on a ketogenic diet. But you still, at the end of the day, need a portion of that to be glucose. So in a low glucose state where the body senses that dietary glucose might not be coming anytime soon, peripheral insulin resistance is triggered. This prevents the muscles from taking up what little glucose there is so that the brain can use it. In simpler terms, lack of sugar being eaten for a long period of time will create insulin resistance, which means your cells will not take in the sugar so that the brain can take some of that glucose so it can function properly. Some believe that this does not create any problems, that it doesn't create weight gain. It's this natural adaptation, which it is. However, there's really not a ton of information about it yet. And in my experience, I think after working with so many women that have been keto for a long time, and I've done keto myself, and I was on the keto bandwagon just like everybody else, after a long period of time, when I saw women plateauing with their weight, and some women would gain weight even eventually, I think this, and there's really no way to tell, but I really believe that this was part of that. Maybe not fully, but I think it was contributing to the weight loss stalls and some people a weight gain. So to remedy that and to make sure that that doesn't happen, it's good to cycle in some carbs and figure out which carbs you tolerate best and start to put them back in, even if it's every other day, every couple of days, but trying to get so that your body can carb cycle and still function well, and you still have good glucose numbers, still have ketones. That's magic right there. So that is what you are moving towards. Okay. Now, our last question is kind of similar to these, kind of what I was just talking about, but this was an Instagram message, actually. Uh, does a person have to do keto or carb cycle when their hormones aren't functioning properly? Does cutting out things like gluten, sugar, dairy, eggs, etc., intolerant foods, help speed up the healing, or is it unnecessary? So, once again, you don't have to eat keto, you don't have to carb cycle, but you do have to eat well. And as I said before, this looks different for each person. For instance, if you're insulin resistant, maybe you've got PCOS, then going keto and even carnivore may be necessary for a period of time. But for others who can tolerate dairy and can tolerate eggs and don't have any food intolerances or gut problems, then they don't need to cut them out. If they're doing fine on them, don't cut them out. Same goes for grains. Now, I think most women who have hormone imbalance, they do seem to do better without them. But I've certainly met some that do just fine. And same with beans. I was just, like I said, I was out with my girlfriends on the weekend, and a bunch of them, no problem. They love the beans, doesn't bother them whatsoever. It's like, great. If I ate beans, I'd be keeled over in pain and bloated and just feel awful. Like I've never been able to handle them ever. Same with wheat. I can't do it. Dairy, poof, no problem. I can do it. So what it comes down to is what issues do you have? Because if you have a gut problem, then yeah, you're going to want to take out those intolerant foods, because your gut has so much to do with your hormones. It completely impacts them. If your gut is leaky, you're going to have systemic inflammation. That inflammation can cause, issues with hormones. They can deplete hormones. Your gut microbiome, if it's not healthy, you won't be breaking down estrogen properly, which is super key for your weight and for your health as well. If you're eating gluten containing grains, processed foods, and for many women, dairy, all of these things can cause gut permeability, which then, in order for your hormones to function properly, you need to eat the right foods to prevent further destruction of the gut wall. So if that's you, if you've got constipation or diarrhea or bloated stomach and you don't feel great and you've got hormone imbalance, the first thing you want to do is change your diet, because that will have a massive impact on your hormone levels. Massive. If not, if you have a great digestive system, you don't have a bunch of weight to lose, but you've got hormone dysfunction, then clean up your diet, whole food diet, get on some bioidentical hormones, and you'll probably be just fine. To each person is going to have to find what's going to work for them. Okay. All right. So that's it. Those are our questions today, ladies. If you have a question for our next Q&A, all you have to do is go to KarenMartell.com/podcast, and you will find our little Q&A form that you can fill out. You can also hit me up on Instagram if you want. I have a lot of people that do that, and then I can throw in your question into next Q&A. So next week, tune in to my interview with Dr. Lois Naharni. Oh my gosh, she's got the hardest last name. Naharni. I'll say it properly in next week's interview. She's the president and CEO of DNA Power Incorporated. Lois, I just butchered her name there. Okay, Lois solved years of personal health problems by discovering a simple diet weakness in her genes that helped her regain her health and lose weight. Lois tells us how our genes can affect our ability to lose weight, detox, and what exercises are based on your specific genetic profile. We even go through my own personal DNA results. So you get to hear how I was cursed with what is called the fat gene. I was so not surprised to hear that. And I have a major genetic predisposition for one of the most deadliest diseases that kill women. I'm just going to leave you with that. Now you're going to have to listen to find out what that is. All right, that's it for today, you guys. I hope you enjoyed the show, and I will see you next time. I hope you enjoyed today's show. New episodes come out every Thursday, so be sure to subscribe so you don't miss any of them. You can also find me at KarenMartell.com, and you can get free recipes and weight loss tips by following me on Instagram and Facebook at Karen Martell Nutrition.